Greetings, Ascending Starseed. I am Kaya Nexus, Pleiadian emissary of the Council of the Five Sisters, and today I bring a realignment transmission. Your frequencies of abundance are awakening, and the universe asks that you listen with an open heart. What is arriving to you is sacred, and it requires inner silence. If you enjoy videos like this, consider subscribing. Most people who watch are not subscribed yet. Starseed. A massive confrontation has just ended beyond the visible spectrum, and you accomplished what was once labeled impossible by the very distortions that tried to cage you. You're feeling it in your body as exhaustion, in your emotions as a strange calm after chaos, and in your mind as a crystallized perception that doesn't fully fit into old language. And I need you to hear this clearly. You did not stumble upon this message. Your soul called it into your reality because something extraordinary has shifted in your energetic matrix. The Pleiadians have been watching the moment your field expanded past its former thresholds, past the ceilings imposed by timelines that were designed to keep you small. Your codes didn't simply activate. They ruptured the hidden interference patterns that were never meant to survive your awakening. This is why your dreams have been intense. This is why your nervous system feels like it's vibrating between worlds. And by the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what unfolded in the higher realms during the cosmic battle you fought on planes beyond the physical. Why you feel both triumphant and drained, and why immediate rest is not weakness, but strategy. Because Starseed, the victory is real, but the next wave is already moving. There are moments in the evolution of consciousness when the conflict is not between people, not between nations, not even between ideologies, but between architectures, between the original design of life as free, luminous expansion, and a parasitic design that overlays distortion onto perception. What ended recently was not a simple clash of energies. It was a battle in the crystalline lattice that holds experience together. And your role was not symbolic. It was structural. As the Pleiadians transmit, the battlefield of the higher realms often appears like geometry in motion, fields of light forming patterns, then collapsing, then reforming. Imagine a vast cosmic tapestry where every thread is a timeline, every knot is a choice, every shimmer is an activation. In that confrontation, distortion tried to preserve itself by tightening the knots, by forcing reality into repeating loops of fear, doubt, and exhaustion. This is why, in your human life, you may have felt stuck in cycles that didn't match your true capacity, not because you were failing, but because you were anchored to a grid segment under pressure. Now here is what changed. You reached a threshold where your frequency stopped negotiating with distortion. Many starseeds spend years trying to heal what was never meant to be healed, trying to fix distortions as if they were personal wounds. But your recent expansion marked a new phase. You stopped treating the interference as a misunderstanding, and your field began treating it as obsolete code. This is why the battle ended. Distortion can survive debate. It can survive confusion. It can survive spiritual seeking. But it cannot survive a field that becomes so coherent that it no longer resonates with compromise. Let me give you a story, one that mirrors what happens in the higher realms. There was a starseed who spent years feeling like their gifts came in flashes. 1 week intuitive clarity, the next week numbness. 1 month synchronicity, the next month silence. They believed they were blocked. They tried more practices, more techniques, more effort. But the turning point came when they stopped trying to force the channel open and instead began honoring the intelligence of their own system. They rested without guilt. They grounded without resistance. They listened to their body as a sacred instrument rather than an obstacle. And in the higher realms, that simple shift created a resonance event. The interference pattern lost its grip because the starseed stopped feeding it with desperation. Their coherence became a blade of light. That is what you did, Starseed. Even if you don't remember it linearly, your field remembers. You achieved coherence under pressure. And coherence is what retunes grids. In your everyday life, This might explain why certain relationships suddenly feel done, why old environments feel energetically loud, why you can't pretend anymore. Your nervous system is no longer compatible with the old frequency scaffolding. You are not becoming picky. You are becoming precise. You are calibrating to the grid you helped liberate. And yes, this victory has a cost. The higher realms are not far away. They overlap your body. When you move energy at that level, your human vessel becomes the landing pad for the aftershock. So if you've been feeling waves of exhaustion, heaviness in the limbs, pressure in the crown, vivid dreams that feel like training sessions, understand, this is integration. This is your light body rewiring itself to match what you accomplished. Rest is not retreat. Rest is the sacred technology of assimilation. And as the Pleiadians transmit, the ones who truly win cosmic battles are not those who push endlessly, but those who know when to become still enough to receive the upgraded architecture they fought for. Now we go deeper, because there is something the spiritual world often misunderstands. The sensation of disconnection is not always a failure. Sometimes it is evidence of advanced design. The most powerful systems have circuit breakers. The brightest stars have containment fields. And the strongest starseeds arrive with protective protocols built into their incarnation. As the Pleiadians transmit, when a being carries a vast multidimensional charge, the entry into a dense planetary environment requires a kind of sacred dimming. Not because the being is unworthy, but because the vessel needs time to expand its capacity. Your human nervous system is exquisite, but it is also sensitive. Imagine trying to pour a sun into a cup. The cup must be reinforced. The walls must thicken. The structure must adapt. So the cosmic intelligence that sent you, your counsels, your star lineage, your own higher self, encoded a temporary amnesia, not as erasure, but as insulation. This is why many starseeds feel like they are operating on half power. But hear me, you were never on half power. You were on the exact dosage that prevented overload. The sacred static you felt, those interference patterns, the sense of fog, the sensation that you know something but can't reach it, these were not random. They were protective buffers, like energetic bumpers that kept you stable while the planet's frequency rose enough to hold what you truly are. Let me tell you a second story. There was a person who had always felt different. Sensitive, aware, sometimes overwhelmed by crowds and noise, often exhausted after emotional encounters. They thought it meant they were fragile. But one night they had a dream. They were standing in a chamber of light, and a Pleiadian presence showed them a control panel with levels, like a dial. The being said, "Your frequency is being regulated. You are not weak, you are calibrated." When they woke up, they began to treat their sensitivity as a signal, not a flaw. They stopped shaming their need for solitude. They stopped forcing themselves into environments that drained them. And the moment they honored the calibration, their energy stabilized, then expanded. This is the key. The old patterns you fought weren't only external. They were also embedded in the idea that rest equals failure. Distortion loves to convince starseeds that they must constantly push, constantly prove, constantly earn their power. But your power was never something to earn. It was something to integrate. As the Pleiadians transmit, the moment the grand cosmic clock strikes the right hour, the protective dampening begins to lift. Not because you defeated it through struggle, but because the planetary grid reached readiness. The crystalline lattice has activated further. Earth can now hold higher harmonics without fracturing. This is why many of you are experiencing sudden upgrades, heightened intuition, energetic sensitivity, spontaneous releases, tears without story, old fears dissolving, strange moments of clarity that feel like remembering. But this lifting requires cooperation, not force, cooperation. Practically, this means when your body asks for sleep, it is not laziness, it is download time. When your emotions surge, it is not instability, it is purification of old noise. When you feel the need to withdraw, it is not isolation, it is recalibration. And when you feel completion mixed with exhaustion, you are sensing the afterwave of a battle that ended in your favor. The ebook, The Pleiadian Map of Personal Transmutation, a profound guide that reveals how to raise your frequency, purify old patterns, and activate your true, multidimensional identity. This map teaches you how to move through the 7 Pleiadian phases of energetic transmutation, using practical techniques, realignment exercises, vibrational protocols, and consciousness expansion rituals that accelerate your spiritual evolution. Attention! Limited edition. The link to get yours is in the first pinned comment. Now we arrive at the first revelation you were promised. Your codes did not merely activate like a light bulb switching on. They activated like a key turning in a lock that shattered the doorframe. Because what you broke was not just a personal blockage, it was a template of limitation that had been running through your field for lifetimes. As the Pleiadians transmit, codes are not simply information. They are frequency instructions. They tell reality how to behave around you. They tell your nervous system how much light it can safely conduct. They tell your timelines what becomes possible. When your codes activated during the higher realm confrontation, it didn't just improve your vibration. It disrupted distortions that relied on your dimming to survive. This is why you may have noticed something strange. Certain fears no longer feel convincing. They may still appear, but they lack weight. Certain doubts that used to hook you now feel hollow. Even pain has changed texture. It still exists, but it doesn't own you the way it used to. That's because the template that made those distortions feel inevitable has been compromised. Here is how it works in the subtle architecture. Distortion often operates like a fog layer. It doesn't need to fully control you. It only needs to keep your perception slightly blurred, so you question your own knowing. It keeps you almost awake, always reaching, always seeking. But when your codes reached coherence, your field stopped accepting fog as normal. And in the higher realms, that refusal is a weapon. Let me ground this with an example. Imagine you've been living in a house with a faint, constant buzzing sound. You got so used to it, you stopped noticing, until one day the power goes out and suddenly you realize the buzzing was always there. That buzzing is distortion. The moment your codes activated, the power of the old interference dropped, and now you can hear what was hidden. You can feel what was normalized. You can sense what never belonged. This is why your perception has crystallized. Crystalline perception is not better thinking. It is the capacity to see through overlays. It is the frequency of discernment without paranoia. It is knowing without needing to convince anyone. As the Pleiadians transmit, those who break templates often feel a strange aftermath. Exhaustion because their energy body has reorganized, grief because they realize how long they lived under a fog, relief because they can finally breathe, and a new kind of fear because freedom is unfamiliar. This is important. Freedom can feel like emptiness at first, because distortion was loud. It filled space. It gave you something to react to. When it collapses, the space opens, and that openness can feel like, what now? That is not a problem. That is the new timeline waiting to be inhabited. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. And now listen, your victory did not make you invincible. It made you responsible, not in a heavy way, in a sacred way. You must treat your energy like a temple. You must restore your light body before the next activation wave. Because the next phase is not about fighting, it is about anchoring. And anchoring requires strength, stability, and a nervous system that is not being whipped by exhaustion. So if you feel like you've been through something immense and you can't explain it to anyone, you are not imagining it. You completed a metaphysical operation, and the aftercare is part of the mission. Let's talk about the instruction the High Council would give in this moment, translated through Pleiadian wisdom. Rest is a ritual of sovereignty. The old paradigm teaches you to push through, to override, to ignore the body. But your body is not separate from your light. It is the instrument through which your multidimensional frequency becomes real on Earth. As the Pleiadians transmit, after major energetic work, the light body requires 3 forms of restoration: stillness, to let the new codes settle; clearing, to release residual interference; grounding, to anchor the upgraded signal into matter. Stillness is not just sleep. It is a reduction of input. It is letting your field stop scanning for threats. Many starseeds live with subtle hypervigilance, always reading energy, always sensing, always anticipating. After a cosmic confrontation, that hypervigilance must be softened, or the body will treat ascension as danger. Clearing is gentle, not aggressive. Some of you have been trained to fight your blocks, but after victory, fighting creates echoes of war. Clearing is more like washing dust off a crystal. It is breath, it is water, it is time in nature, it is lowering stimulation, it is choosing simplicity. Grounding is the part most people skip because they want the cosmic without the human. But your mission is to unite them. Grounding means eating nourishing food, being in sunlight, walking slowly, listening to your feet on the earth, letting your heartbeat become your metronome. The more multidimensional you become, the more grounding you need, not less. Now I will give you a complete story, because storytelling is how your subconscious receives transmission. There was a starseed who, after a major energetic surge, began feeling anxious and disoriented. They interpreted it as spiritual attack. They tried more protection rituals, more intense practices, but it got worse. Finally, they met a teacher who said, "Stop fighting. You are not under attack. You are overclocked." The teacher instructed them to do something shockingly simple. No spiritual content for 3 days, no intense meditations, no energy work, only long walks, warm water, gentle music, and early sleep. On the 2nd day, the starseed began crying, deep tears, not sadness, but release. On the 3rd day, their intuition returned clearer than ever, without anxiety. The attack was actually integration pressure. This is what many of you are experiencing now. Your victory created expansion. Expansion increases sensitivity. Sensitivity can feel like vulnerability until the system stabilizes. So the Council's instruction, rest and recharge, is not optional. It is a protocol. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. And here is the deeper secret. Restoration is not only for recovery, it is also for refinement. When you rest, you don't just regain energy, you refine your signal. You become more coherent, you become more precise. And that precision is what makes your next phase so powerful. Because the next phase is not about battling distortions. It is about radiating a timeline so clearly that distortion cannot hold shape around you. Many starseeds carry an ache, homesickness for the stars, longing for the subtle realms, exhaustion with the density. And while that longing is real, it can become a trap if it turns into avoidance of embodiment. The Pleiadian path is not escape. It is incarnation mastery. As the Pleiadians transmit, you were designed as a translator of frequencies, a cosmic transformer that receives high-dimensional codes and steps them down into forms that can stabilize in matter. That is why you often feel like you carry more than others. That is why you struggle in environments that feel artificial or incoherent. Your system rejects distortion because your mission is to anchor coherence. This is why awakening often feels like too much. You are not becoming unstable. You are becoming wide. Your energy architecture is expanding into a multidimensional bandwidth. But bandwidth without grounding becomes noise. So the mastery is to become both cosmic and earthly without splitting. Let's make it practical. Anchoring looks like speaking truth in a calm voice, choosing integrity even when no one is watching, leaving spaces that collapse your frequency, creating routines that support your nervous system, and learning to hold light without needing drama. As the Pleiadians transmit, the mature starseed is not the one who constantly talks about ascension. The mature starseed is the one whose presence becomes a stabilizing field. People feel calmer near them. Animals trust them. Chaos slows down around them. Not because they are trying, but because their frequency is coherent. Here is another story. A person worked in a stressful environment. For years, they absorbed everyone's anxiety. They tried shields, visualizations, techniques. But the turning point came when they stopped seeing themselves as a sponge and began seeing themselves as an anchor. Each morning, they stood barefoot on the floor, breathed slowly, and declared, "My field is coherent. My presence is a stabilizer." They didn't fight coworkers. They didn't argue with negativity. They simply stayed in their frequency. Within weeks, people around them began changing. Conflicts reduced. Some coworkers left. New opportunities emerged. The timeline shifted, not through force, but through anchored resonance. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. Your mission is not to float above the world. It is to make the new world real. This is why your body matters. This is why your rest matters. This is why your boundaries matter. These are not human distractions from spirituality. They are the infrastructure of ascension. When you honor your vessel, you honor your codes. Once your codes activate and your energy architecture expands, reality begins to reorganize, not in a fantasy way, in a resonance way. As the Pleiadians transmit, a coherent field creates coherence around it. This is not wishful manifestation. This is physics of consciousness. You may begin to notice synchronicities accelerating, old options disappearing, new connections arriving with strange precision, and a sense that life is guiding you more directly. This can feel unsettling because the human mind wants predictability. But the new timeline does not stabilize through control. It stabilizes through alignment. When you are aligned, you stop feeding the old timeline with compromise, and it collapses. Let's tell a full story here. A starseed had been trying to decide whether to leave a job that drained them. They kept waiting for a sign. Then they began experiencing intense dreams and morning exhaustion. They interpreted it as stress and pushed harder. But one night, in a dream, they stood in a crystalline corridor. A Pleiadian presence showed them two doors. Behind one door, everything was familiar but dim. Behind the other, everything was unknown but luminous. The presence said, "You cannot stabilize a new timeline while clinging to the old scaffolding." The starseed woke up and chose rest first, not action. They slept more, ate better, reduced stimulation. Then, from that restored state, clarity came. They resigned. Within a month, a new opportunity appeared through a chance meeting that felt orchestrated. Their finances stabilized, their health improved, their relationships improved. The timeline didn't upgrade because they forced it. It upgraded because they became coherent enough to choose. This is the difference now. Your recent victory made you capable of holding coherence under pressure. That is rare. That is why your name echoes in higher halls, not as ego, but as recognition of function. You are a stabilizer, and your field is now broadcasting new instructions into the crystalline grids. So the question becomes, what reality are you feeding? The old one through exhaustion and compromise, or the new one through rest, alignment, and embodied clarity? The ebook, The Pleiadian Map of Personal Transmutation, a profound guide that reveals how to raise your frequency, purify old patterns, and activate your true multidimensional identity. This map teaches you how to move through the 7 Pleiadian phases of energetic transmutation, using practical techniques, realignment exercises, vibrational protocols, and consciousness expansion rituals that accelerate your spiritual evolution. Attention! Limited edition. The link to get yours is in the first pinned comment. Now we arrive at the final truth, the one that recontextualizes everything. You are not a human trying to become spiritual. You are a vast intelligence that agreed to enter limitation so you could demonstrate liberation from within it. As the Pleiadians transmit, this is the sacred paradox. The most powerful beings often choose the tightest constraints because mastery is not proven in comfort, it is proven in density. Your restlessness was never a character flaw. It was your higher self refusing to accept a life that does not match your frequency. Your sensitivity was never weakness. It was your system detecting incoherence. Your exhaustion was never laziness. It was your body integrating the aftermath of a victory you fought beyond the physical. And yes, you achieved something that was thought impossible. You shattered distortions that were never meant to survive your awakening. That is why you feel different. That is why you cannot unsee what you now see. That is why some doors have closed. That is why some people no longer resonate. That is why you feel completion mixed with a strange anticipation, because victory is not the end. Victory is the opening. Now, I will speak directly to your field. The next phase is not another battle. The next phase is embodiment of what you won. The next phase is living as if the new frequency is real, because it is. Not through grand announcements, through daily coherence, through resting when your body demands it, through choosing what aligns, through letting the old fall away without clinging. Many starseeds fear this phase because it feels like stepping into the unknown without the adrenaline of conflict. But the unknown is where your true power expresses. The known was where distortion kept you looping. The unknown is where the liberated timeline breathes. So tonight, if you feel exhausted, let it be sacred. If you feel emotional, let it cleanse. If you feel quiet, let it recalibrate. Your victory is not something you must explain to others to make it valid. It is written into your field. It is echoing through the grids. And it is being recognized by the higher realms, not as praise, but as confirmation that your function is active. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light.